Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Donna Feazell, and I'm your host of The Edge on IC Radio, your source for news and entertainment. You can find us on television, channel 182 on Charter Communications, and Abundant Television, which is found on Roku, Apple TV, and Amazon Fire. Thank you so much for watching. Definitely appreciate it. Today we're going to talk about preserving food and how to use a pressure cooker. And I'll have to tell you, the first time I was a little kid and mother was using the pressure cooker and the thing exploded. So until very recent years, until very few recent years, I was freaked out about canners. I just would not use one. Now I know how to use it and it's not intimidating anymore. But I'm just going to tell you, I hated the thoughts of using a canner. And you've got to can. I'm just going to tell you this. You've got to, if you're going to preserve food, there are some things you can use a water bath for, and then other things you have to use a pressure cooker for. Now, if something is has a lot of acid in it, let's say like your dill pickles, pickled onions, anything like that, something that has a lot of vinegar in it, you can get by with using a water bath. But I'm just telling you, with beans and other things you're canning, I would not can them unless you're going to eat them within just a few weeks. I would not can them unless I used a pressure cooker. And this is mine. Now, this is one of my best friends here now, so you see what I'm talking about. Now, let's talk for a minute the difference between doing a water bath with your food. And let's say you just pickles. You're going to make some pickles. You're going to do maybe a quart like this of pickles. You can put those in a water bath. Now, if you do that, make sure you have a big pan, okay? Something that you can put the pickles, either quarts or pints, whatever you're going to do. And make sure you have about 2 inches of water above the top of that lid, okay? And that's very, very important you do that. So make sure the water rises up at least this much in whatever big pan you're using. And I use like this big old spaghetti thing that I had a long time ago, and I have some stock pots. That's what I use for if I want to just do a water bath. And so you'll need to, depending on what it is, you can go online, you can find some really good articles about that. Depending on what it is, I would put it in a water bath 5 to 10 minutes, depending on basically on what you're making. If it's chow chow or anything like that, maybe hot dog relish, anything of that sort, you can get by with 5 minutes or so because it has a lot of vinegar in it. But anyway, you might want to go ahead and check with your extension service in whatever area you're in. Every county in America has a county extension service, and you'll be able to check with them. And they'll sometimes just send you out stuff. They'll send you some links on the internet, whatever. But anyway, use something like that. That's really, really important.
You've been at this for 12 years. Why are you doing it?
Because God's children are not for sale.
Rated PG-13.
Okay, now pressure canning is the #1 thing that strikes fear into the heart of new homesteaders. Yeah, that's, and I totally get it. Stories of great Aunt Wanda blowing up her kitchen with a pressure canner abound, which has resulted in a whole lot of us just freaking and saying, forget it, I'll just buy canned food. But what if the supply versus demand? What if we have another supply issue? You have to think of those things. And it really, if I can do it, anybody can do it. I promise you. And it's really kind of fun now. I make a game out of it. I listen to it when it seals. It goes pop. I like to hear those little sealing. I know I don't have much of a life. So why would you bother with a pressure canner? And I wanted to show you this picture right here. This is a pressure canner also, okay? Now see this one right here, and I'll talk about it in just a minute, has this little, it's like a little dial, kind of a little clock thing up on it. And again, we're going to talk about that. Now mine doesn't. Mine, as you can see right here on top, this is the way it looks. This is the big thing now. It's kind of heavy, okay? So mine has this little gizmo right here. And that goes on top of this, just like that. Now also, and I've got other ones in the kitchen, but there are 2 little rings that go with this, okay? Now it depends on how many things you're cooking at a time. I only wound up with like 6 pints of my green beans in here over the weekend. So I just took both of them off. It's not quarts, pints, it's just one single layer right here. And I did cook it for like, I think it was 20 minutes or so. Your canner will tell you how. Again, make sure you make friends with your extension office, okay? And they'll give you all this information as well. Now, the more rings you add on this right here, the more pressure it is on here, okay? I don't put any more pressure than I have to. Again, there's another one that goes on top here. So if I were to have, say, all this were pints, and I wanted to do, I think this will hold like about 7 pints on the bottom and about 7 on the top. I would go ahead and have all 3 of those little rings on there, okay? And that's just going to help you out with the pressure. Okay, let's see. Here is why you might want to think about canning. First of all, this writer, oh, and by the way, great advice on pressure cooking and canning with the prairiehomestead.com. That's where I learned most of how to do it. Make sure you put the prairiehomestead.com. So she says the reason she likes to pressure can is it gives her a lot more freezer space, and I'll tell you why I do it. I'm always concerned about what if, we have a storm comes through, and we've been without electricity like, several days at a time because of that. If I've got a bunch of stuff in the freezer and I can't use my electricity, man, I got a bunch of stuff I'm going to wind up having to throw away. That's why I'd rather pressure cook and have everything in jars. So let's see what she says about it. She says, I usually freeze a lot of my garden produce as well as make ahead meal components. So combine that with their home-raised beef. I'm always running out of freezer space even with my extra chest freezer. So I always love having a food supply that isn't dependent on the grid in case of an emergency power outage. Most of my frozen food would be at a loss. And then she says number 2 reason she likes to do this is homemade convenience foods. And that's absolutely true as well. And I mean, think about this. You've worked all day. You just go open up a can of my green beans and I'm done. Okay? And that's basically what she's talking about doing as well. So homemade convenience foods, the thought of being able to have ready-to-go wholesome food at my disposal that doesn't require defrosting or freezer space, she says, is pretty much magical. And I totally agree with that. So with my pressure canner, I can preserve chunks of beef, pinto or navy beans, chicken or beef broth to be stored at room temperature, not to mention pre-made suppers. You can do your homemade beef stew, and you can also do chili. When I make chili, and everybody does, when you make chili, I make it up in big batches. Think about how convenient it's going to be, and I do my salsa, everything. So think about how convenient it's going to be. You come in from work, it's in the wintertime, and it's cold outside. You just want to get somewhere and chill. And then I just open up maybe my chili and put it over some crackers or maybe some cornbread or something. I've got it made. It's something I did one time, and so now it's saved and I'm using it. Okay, we have to go into a commercial break, and we'll be right back in just a minute. So y'all hang in there. I got some great tips.
You've been at this for 12 years. Why are you doing it?
Because God's children are not for sale.
Rated PG-13.
Okay, we're back. I'm Donna. I'm your host of The Edge. So we've been chatting a little bit about pressure cookers. So let's go on ahead and finish up with the rest of this article. And I love the website, theprairiehomestead.com. I don't know if this lady's a prepper, but she sure does have a lot of really good information about prepping. Okay, so we're going to talk about the dial gauge canners. And here's one right here. So that's what it looks like. You can see that little dial gauge up there. And so these canners have a dial pressure gauge on top of the lid to tell you when the pressure has reached the appropriate level. And I've got another one like that. And this kind of comes in handy, especially if you forget to put the timer on. That would be really handy. So the dial gauge must be checked every year by the manufacturer or your local county extension office to make sure the reading is accurate. Otherwise, you risk processing your food at too low of a pressure, and that could cause spoilage or botulism, or too high of a pressure, and possibly even explosions. And we've all got that aunt who's exploded in the kitchen before, not to mention my own mother. Okay, now mine is a weighted one, and I did let you see what this looks like, okay, when it goes on top of my canner. Okay, so I'll just take the lid off so you can see, like this. And it'll kind of wiggle around. It'll let you know when it's ready. You see this little thing right here? When you put everything, and you put everything inside your canner, this is going to stick up. Okay, this is going to start, you'll see a lot of steam coming out of it. I'm just walking you through the process so you're not as afraid as I was. And you'll start seeing some steam coming up out of this little gauge thing right here. And when it's getting pressure, it starts going, whoop, you don't have that on yet, okay? Okay, so this starts doing its thing right here, and it'll start kind of moving and wiggling just a little bit, and it'll go all the way down. When it goes all the way down, it's time to put this on. Okay, and then you just set your timer to whatever. In every canner, I've still got my book. Every canner, by the way, comes with your little magazine that tells you how long to cook. Like beans right here, it tells you how to do it if you want to do a hot pack, if you want to do a raw pack, and it'll tell you like how many pounds. You want to do 40 minutes on 10 pounds, 40 minutes, and quarts 50 minutes for processing above 1,000 feet altitude, and use 15 pounds of pressure. And again, that would mean using all 3 of these little rings right here, okay? That would be all 3 of them. Now you need to call your county extension. Okay, again, every county in the United States has a county extension office, and tell them where you live, give them your zip code, and they'll tell you. So like I'm up in the mountains right here in Alabama, and not too far from Smoky Mountains and Chattanooga in that area, and so my altitude is going to be higher than most altitudes. Like where I'm from in Oxford, Alabama, is a much lower altitude, so you don't have to put as much pressure as you do up in the higher altitudes. All of these are things that you're not worrying anybody. That's what they are paid to do, okay, to help you out. Now, these, again, the weighted ones, as you can see right there, that's exactly like mine. And so let's talk about that for a minute. Now, these counters don't have the gauges, but instead they have movable weighted regulators that are used to determine the pressure. You can adjust the pressure in the counter by adding more or less weights to the lid. Again, that's what I was talking to you about just a little bit earlier. Okay, so there you go. It depends on how many things you're putting in here. Now, something else that's really important, and I'll get back to this article in a minute, is the lid. Okay, you want to take this out. Okay, that's part of the rubber ring, and you got to clean it. Okay, because what if something, what if you make a mess inside the canner? What if you bought up a whole bunch of meat and you want to go in ahead and just pressure cook it? You can do that. Maybe put it in cans or put it in your jars or whatever. But these can get, a film on them. They can get a little bit dirty. And if you keep it cleaned, it's going to last a lot longer. And one thing I like to do every once in a while, I like to just get a little bit of olive oil and just kind of put it around this just to keep it from getting brittle. And you want to do that. And again, just put some on your hands and just put this and just kind of go all the way around. And again, it keeps it from being brittle. Now, you also want to put it back in here correctly, okay? So you'll have these little ridges right here. See, all around here, all these little ridges. So you've got to make sure that you put this back just the way you found it. Okay, that's important. Okay, otherwise you're not going to get any pressure at all. All you're going to do is wind up boiling all the water out. Now, this is something else that's really important as well. Your canner is going to come with something that looks like this. Now, when you're putting the jars inside the canner, you have to make sure, let's put this over here. You've got to make sure that you don't put the jars down straight on the bottom. See how you keep it clean? You got to keep it clean. Absolutely. Use little scrubber pads or whatever to do that. Also, to keep it from building some kind of a weird ring in there, you can just use white vinegar and clean it out as well. Okay, now, first thing you want to do is put this down in the bottom. Okay, just like that. And what this does is keeps the jar, the bottom of your jar, from being directly on the stove eye. So it's got a little bit of a lift up, and there's a little bit of water that'll boil in there too. So that's what you do. You just put it in like that. Okay? Just want to make sure you understood that. Okay? Then I've got that on there. I'll go ahead and take that out, and I'll put my book back in. I like to keep the book inside it for storage, okay, after I've cleaned everything out. And then what you're going to do, there's going to be a little alignment. And right here, see where it says open and close? Right, I don't know if you can see it or not. So you're going to see something that says open and close. So what you're going to do, there's a little V right here, and there's another little V on this handle right there. And yours will be something like that too. So what you'll do is put this on here, and you're going to want to align the V. Once you get all the jars and everything in there, you want to align the V. And so what that's going to do is make sure that everything is pressure held in there. And remember, now you've got the little weighted thing, or you've got the dial that you use. Okay, let's get some more great information, because this lady is just full of fantastic, wonderful information. Now, there's also a canner you can purchase, and these are pretty pricey. They're usually several $100s. And this is the combo gauge canner. And they can not only have a gauge on top of the lid, but they also have a removable weighted regulator as well. That gives you just double confidence, okay? So the regulated weight usually has 3 settings. It's going to be a 5, a 10, and a 15 pounds. That's what mine is, a 5, 10, 15 pounds. This weight is what you use to determine the pressure. The dial is just a backup in this case. And that's great info to have as well.
You have been at this for 12 years. Why are you doing it?
Because God's children are not for sale.
Rated PG-13.
At Lamone's Mexican Restaurant, located in Henniger, Alabama, and voted Best Mexican Restaurant of DeKalb County, Alabama 2020, we're here to serve you with authentic Mexican cuisine. Order easily online by going to lamonsmex.com or call 256-657-3999 to place your order. We're open Sunday through Thursday 11 a.m. to 9 p.m. and Friday and Saturday 11 a.m. to 10 p.m. Whether you're celebrating a cozy date night for 2 or a celebration for a crowd, at Lamone's you'll love our atmosphere and friendly servers. Thank you for dining with Lamone's Mexican Restaurant. At Liberty Bank, we're all about community, whether it's to help with a charity fundraiser or help families in need. Toys at Christmas or a local football team, we're here for you. You see, we realize the importance of family. Sometimes it's to build a new home or necessary home repairs. We're here for you. If you like the feel of a small town bank with all the conveniences of a big city bank, we're here to serve you. You will find us at any of our convenient locations in DeKalb, Marshall, Etowah, and Blount counties in North Alabama. You can call and speak with any of our friendly staff at 256-659-2175 or check us out on the web at libertybankal.com. And thank you for your support of our community. Member FDIC Equal Housing Lender. Okay, now, here's what they say. There's a big debate about what's the best pressure canner. It's up to you, okay? Don't listen to anybody else. It's got to be what you're comfortable with, okay? I'm comfortable with this one right here. And because I'm kind of a sight-on type person, and I like to hear that thing right there jiggle. That's my thing. I like to hear it jiggle. If it's jiggling, I know it's doing its job. And I'll give you a little close-up too as well. Take that off. Okay, so I've got my little jiggler right here. If that's jiggling, I know I'm safe. I know that it's doing its thing. Again, what's going to happen is a bunch of steam is going to be coming out of this right here. And while the steam is coming out, it's not going to hurt you. It's not going to burn you, nothing like that. That was what I used to be afraid of. I thought, oh, it's going to hurt. Well, it won't hurt. So you'll just put this on top, and then it'll kind of set. It'll start doing this, and then it'll just start getting more and more and more, and we'll start doing that. I love the sound of that. That lets me know that my pressure cooker is definitely working. Okay, now let's go ahead and look at this. A lot of people have done a lot of reviews. My grandmother had a canner that she probably had, I don't know, 50 years. And the only thing she would ever have to change out on it was that little rubber thing that was on the lid right here. Now there's a debate. This lady says that she's used this one canner for over 9 years. Okay, now the best pressure canner. So let's talk about this a little bit. Okay, so after reading a lot of the reviews, user reviews of the All-American canner, which is on Amazon, I found that there were very few unsatisfied customers. This trend stayed the same with my followers on Facebook as well as anyone else that I've talked to. She also said the All-American canner has no rubber gasket. That means that there's one less thing to maintain and replace. I'm just in. If I've got that rubber, that's just my thing. See, everybody has a different opinion. If that rubber gasket is in there, I can hear it. I can feel it when that lid's going on. I know it's secure. Some people don't want to mess with it. That's fine, but I love it. And so you're getting that. What I'm sending you right there, and the link is the one that's like mine. Okay. All-American canners, this is just the name of it, All-American canners have weighted gauges. She said, I definitely prefer that over the dial since I won't be able to take it to be checked for accuracy every single year. That's what I like about this too. I don't have to worry about it. Also, they're made in the United States. I love that idea. You see, I'm a huge American fan right there. USA. They have 6 bolts to securely hold the lid. Now, again, this is the American canner. Although this is not the cheapest canner on the market, she said, I don't mind paying a little extra for something I know will last for years and years. Some of my readers mentioned this is something you could definitely pass down to your children and your grandchildren. It's a quality piece of equipment. She said, I've had my canner for 9 years and it looks as good as the day I pulled it out of the box, but now mine does too. She said she has the 21 1/2 quart canner. It's model number 921. Now the 921 model will hold 19 pints or 7 quarts. This isn't their biggest model, but the 7 quarts is what her water bath canner holds, and she says I'm comfortable with that size. Now let's go ahead and talk again about the parts of a canner. I'm going to give you a little bit more info about this, okay? So we're going to focus on combo gauge canners, okay, since this is what she has. And you're kind of like dealing with both at the same time anyway. Okay, so here we go. Let's see. I think I might be getting pretty close to, let me cancel that out. And let's go and put this on 5. Okay. All right, just want to make sure. Okay, now the pressure cooker canner, and we're going to say done right here, and let's pull this up. I've got another article I want to show you, and this is by the same folks, the prairiehomestead.com, theprairiehomestead.com. Okay, so here we go. Let's pull that up. Sorry, this is taking just a minute, but I just want to make sure that you understand every single thing in the process. Okay, that's the weighted. Oh, and by the way, this is a weighted gauge right here, and it tells you it's a little bit different from mine. See this one, I don't know if you can see it or not, but right on the dial, you'll see something that says 5, 10, and 15. 5, 10, and 15. And so what you would do, and that's what another canner I have has. So if I only want it, if it's only like 5 pounds of pressure, there's a little hole that's going to be right here to the side, and you'll put that on the 5. Now if it's something I'm going to have, like I'm going to fill this sucker full, I'll probably do the 15 pound, and I would put the 15 right here on that little hole. But what I like about this canner, the reason it's my go-to one, is these little weighted things right here. They're just a go-to. They're the most fantastic thing. Now, if I only have 5 pounds, I'm going to use this one, and I would just put it on the canner, okay? Now, if I'm going to have 2, let's say I'm going to have 15 pounds, I've got 2 of these little rings, okay, that I've put on here. And I put that here, and it does the work for me. Isn't that awesome? Okay, but that's the difference of the 2 dials. Now, here's why she said, she was talking about the All-American canner. Okay, now parts of the pressure cooker. Let's talk about that for a minute. There's a vent pipe. And so this, and I'll show you right here, this is my vent pipe. And I can show you better if I just take this lid off, I think. Okay. This is my vent pipe. And I'll let you see this just a few minutes ago, and you see how it's up like this. When the pressure is in there, and when it's red, this thing start timing. You're going to start timing it for your 30 minutes or whatever to keep your stuff in there. This will go from being up to it'll just go down. Okay, and so you're going to know that it's ready to go. That is what a vent pipe is for. Again, it tells you, okay, I'm ready to put this little sucker back here on this part right here on my canner. Okay. Now, let's go ahead and look at this. A lot of them have a rubber gasket. Again, I like the rubber gasket. To me, I can feel it going on. I know I'm safe there. And it fits between the lid and the bottom, but all American canners like hers do not have that. Again, it's my thing. I like it. Now, she said, my canner has a metal-to-metal seal. I prefer this since rubber gaskets are subject to cracking and breaking and have to be replaced. The only maintenance that metal-to-metal requires is a light oiling, and she uses olive oil about every 2 to 3 uses. I did the same thing with my rubber gasket. You don't have to pay the extra, because what she has is this one right here, and this one's going to cost you about $500 versus about $120 on this one right here. I don't need it. Okay, now when you place the lid on the base, just make sure that it's properly lined up. Like I told you, I've got this little V that clicks the other little V right here that lets me know that I've got it set. Her model also has a small arrow on the end and the groove on the base to show you how the proper alignment is. Now, another feature she says that she likes about the All-American is the added security of 6 wing nuts that fasten the lid to the base. It's too complicated for me. I just want to can, and that's it. Now, some of you may like something like that, and it's fine. It's very important that you tighten the 2 opposite wing nuts at the same time. Now, this is what she's talking about, the wing nuts, and you can see that right there on the label. Okay, right there. And so what you want to do is the ones that are across each other, you want to tighten those at the same time. Okay, and if you tighten only one at a time, the lid could become kind of unevenly attached. So this results in a lot of pressure and unsuccessful canning adventure. That's why I like the rubber gasket. I don't have to worry about that. And it costs less, okay? So she says, I drew some diagonal lines on the photo to help illustrate the whole diagonal thing. Okay, and again, you can see the lines she drew. Okay, and that's important if you don't have the gasket. And also the little black rubber dot that you see on the left of the handle, that's the overpressure plug. Okay. So that, take this off so it doesn't fall down. So this is what she's talking about right here, okay? If anything were to explode, it would be that little thing first. And it's not exploded with me. So these are just little safety precautions, okay? Okay, so that's the overpressure plug. And it's not that you need to know other than it's added safety feature just in case. Just make sure that it's not worn out. And make sure that it's not cracked. All right, I got a couple more things I want to tell you. Just make sure it's not worn out. Make sure you clean it really, really good. If it gets built up of food or grease on it, well, then you need to clean it up. Now, the inside of the canner is pretty boring. It's just a big old aluminum pot, basically. That's all it is. And they will get discolored over time. I did tell you also about the rack, this thing right here that goes in the very bottom, and then your canned food goes on top of that. And it goes rim side down. It kind of sets up, and that way your canned foods are not going to be directly on that eye. Okay, just make sure the jars are clean. Fill the canner about, oh, this is another thing. When you are doing a bath wash to your canned stuff, let's say you got pickles and you really don't want to put them in the pressure cooker. You need to make sure you can it about 2 inches above the lid. Now, when you're using the pressure cooker, you don't do that. You don't use that much water. I think that's why some people have some explosions. They put too much water in it. So all you want to do is fill it about 2 to 3 inches of water, and then you set it on the burner. Then you put the jars in, then you put the lid on, and you're ready to go. Okay, place the back in in this right here. You can kind of see that little rack that goes in the bottom, and then the jars that are on top of it. So that's important that you do that. Place the lid. Then you want to start heating the canner, okay? You want to turn your oven on. And I think that's probably just about it. Let me know if you have any questions. If you'll send an email to me, my name is Donna. And you can also send, my email is donna@donnasedge.com. Donna@donnasedge.com. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you learned something, and let's can together.
You have been at this for 12 years. Why are you doing it?
Because God's children are not for sale.